to get up.
Yay.
Here we go. Yes. Good afternoon, Tuesday, February 27th, Senate Institutions is, as we customarily do, I'd like to introduce the committee members at the start of the week, starting right over here.
Oh.
You're going with a mouth, well, that's not fair.
I am
I'm
very-
sorry.
I apologize to folks on Zoom. Wendy Harrison, Wyndham District. Irene Runner, Chittenden North, which includes Fairfax.
Brian Collmore, the Rutland District.
Linda, committee assistant.
Senator Russ Ingles from the Essex District, and thank you. I want to appreciate everybody coming today. We got a busy week going. Today we're gonna spend some time on section 5 of the building community grants. It's, actually, we're gonna let everybody talk about how successful this program is and how good it makes everybody feel. We always wish it could be more, always wish it could be more. But in the year that we're in this year, to be able to do what we've historically done, we're pretty proud about. So hopefully it stays that way. So who would like to lead off the discussion?
We can do that.
Welcome aboard, Laura.
My assistant.
That's enough.
That's fine.
Do you want those one at the table?
Oh,
And I'll fall back?
sure.
Thank you.
Stage manager.
That works.
And then.
There. Hi.
No, we've been talking a lot about Bennington.
So for the record, I'm Laura Treishman, the State Historic Preservation Officer. And I am joined by Caitlin Perkins, who's our tax credit and grants coordinator. She masterfully oversees this program. She said she has the funnest job in the Division for Historic Preservation because she's given out the money.
That's always a good job.
Yeah.
She does it very well. It's been a customer.
She does. She works with everybody and gets their stress to a lower level.
All right, should I just jump in?
Absolutely.
Well,
And you name too.
yes, Caitlin Corkins, tax credit and grants coordinator with the Division for Historic Preservation. Thank you all so much for letting us come in and tell you a little bit about the historic preservation and barn grant programs. So these are two of the building communities grants program, overall grants program. And I'm going to start with the historic preservation grants. This program offers 50-50 matching grants of up to $20,000 to nonprofit organizations and municipalities, specifically for buildings that are either listed or eligible for listing in the National Register of Historic Places. So this is really focused on our historic community buildings, town halls, libraries, churches, historical societies, that kind of thing. And in the governor's budget, they have recommended level funding, which is at $300,000 annually. We're hoping it stays that way.
Yes.
Do you want questions in the middle or?
Whenever you.
Well, I just want to say, and I'll say it as many times as I can, I just think your budget level is very low. In a state that has tremendous historic resource, just buildings and bridges and barns. 300,000 for each project or each category, total 600,000, less than $1 million is very, very low. And I will advocate for increasing.
And
Presuming that
Yeah.
you would say that there are folks who would make use of
Absolutely.
additional funding.
absolutely. We have to turn at least half of the applicants away each year.
This chart actually shows the stats from the last
Okay.
10 years, the number of applications we've received, the number of grants we've been able to award, amounts requested, all that. So you'll can see from those numbers that we are definitely oversubscribed substantially in this program. And so there are lots of good projects out here that unfortunately we have to turn down. And I think if we had more funding available, there would be wonderful projects that would be benefit from that. I think it's nice to see that even despite the pandemic and the upheavals of flooding and, you know, all the things we've been dealing with in the last 5 years, that for the historic preservation grant program, the demand has really stayed pretty steady. I think it's a testament to all the folks that use this program, all these small communities, you know, towns, nonprofits, a lot of volunteer power out there, people putting together these applications and seeing these projects through. So that's really been rewarding to see, despite all the craziness that's been going on.
And you can see from the chart around 2017, it was only $200,000, and then it went up. In 2022.
We tried to raise it last year and our house counterpart shot it down. We actually, I can't remember what we ended up going up. Did we try to go up another 30,000?
I thought it was 50, but
Maybe it was 50, it was 50,000, yeah. And we would have liked to have really had stayed with that, but again, I feel the comments of Senator Harrison are a lot like our committee feels, and they said, well, it would set a precedent. Well, okay, well, you know, sometimes somewhere along the way it needs to go up. So, but yeah, I wish that we would have got that done, but anyways, here we are.
Yeah,
Here we are.
and then can I just say something else?
Absolutely.
The, yeah, I mean, obviously I would wanna try again, but I think what's important with these grants is it's also leads to economic development typically. Sometimes it's affordable housing, sometimes it's, retreat barns, and I know you have them all over the state. And typically, this isn't the only source of funding that folks are getting. They're obviously putting in their own money. And there's typically a stack, so this funding is just really important.
And maybe you're gonna get to it. I apologize if I'm jumping in on it. Is this last money in or first money in, or anywhere in the project?
It varies from project to project.
Okay, so there's no requirements that it has to be last money in or to finish it, to put it over the finish line. Because we have some grants that are like that. It has to be something that helps you get over the finish line.
Correct, then this is, it's really flexible funding, I would say, there are a lot of those projects that you mentioned. Where they're having to sort of get a stack of funding, and some of those federal grants can be very arduous in terms of the process that people have to go through, and I think one of the things people really appreciate about the state grant program is that it's really user friendly. You know, there's only one person, me,
Right.
to talk to, so I think that helps, especially with those more complex projects with got multiple funding sources. To not have added layers of review and all of that through the state.
So one of the people that we had in earlier in the year, I see that they were a $20,000 grant winner, was the Old First Church and Sanctuary in Bennington. And I see 38 applicants, 19 awards. When can they apply again?
Every other year.
Okay.
So they would not be eligible to apply this coming year, but then they could certainly come back to it. And we see a lot of applicants who come back to us multiple times over the years, especially with something like the Old First Church, where they have a really substantial amount of work that they're wants to get done. You know, like sort of a generational investment in building, I would say.
And who makes the decision as far as, how there's a board that makes the decision?
The Vermont Advisory Council for Historic Preservation is the board that reviews all applications and makes those decisions. And they meet monthly.
Yes.
We just. So this just has a snapshot of some of the projects that we funded in this most recent round of funding, which was back in December. We funded a total of 19 projects in 6 counties. So the awards this year went to support work at some really important landmark buildings, including the Rockingham Meeting House, the church in Bennington, the Church Street Church in Burlington, as well as the projects here on the screen. The types of things that we fund, so Here, the Grand Isle Lake House is getting funding to do some work on the wood shingle roof of the mansard roof. Braintree Hill Meeting House, they're replacing their slate roof with new slate. In St. Johnsbury, the North Congregational Church is doing stone masonry repairs. And the West Townsend Stone Arch Bridge, that's also a masonry project. That's a really fun and exciting one. We don't do a whole lot of bridges, but this is definitely a worthy historic structure. And then in Tunbridge at the Baptist Church, they're doing window restoration. And same thing in Burlington at the Central Fire Station, has a window restoration project. So I did bring with me, and I'll pass out. Let's pass it up. These are the summaries of all of the projects that we funded this year through the Historic Preservation Grant Program. So there's a little picture and a snapshot of each one of the projects. I will look at it.
I did.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, this was actually two here. One is the Barnes and one is the Historic Preservation Grant. So I'll just, in case you missed something. So I'm gonna also just touch on the Barn Preservation Grant Program, which works, very similarly to the Historic Preservation Grant Program. Again, these are 50-50 matching grants. We just this year increased the maximum grant from 15,000 to 20,000. And that really reflects the increase in prices to do this kind of work. We've been talking about it for a few years before we made this decision to do it this year. Just seeing more and more projects where 50% grant of 15,000 wasn't going to actually be 50% of their project cost. And even at 20,000, I would say there's still a number of projects that are more than $30,000 total, but this does help kind of meet that gap. Again, this program is recommended funding at 300,000, which is level funded from last year. And so this is a similar chart showing the stats from the last 10 years. I do want to point out we did have a dip in the number of applications that we got this year. This was not due to lack of interest. I definitely had as much interest, inquiries, phone, email as I've had in the past. I think the biggest factor in this was that folks had a really hard time finding estimates, finding a contractor to come out and give them an estimate, even to show up. And that is one thing that we ask people to provide with their application, so that they have a realistic budget of what they're going to be using the grant funds for. And so without that, people were not able to submit applications. Laura and I have been trying to think about ways that we, in our, there's a limit to what we could do in terms of getting more contractors in the state or getting more contractors to go out and look at people's barns. We've been trying to think about ways that we could maybe address this, working with the Preservation Trust of Vermont, being one of the ways they have a matching grants to do assessments on historic barns. And so is there a way that we could partner with them to help alleviate this issue? Despite the dip in applications, we were still oversubscribed this year, as you can see from the numbers. So I don't think it's a lack of interest by any means. I think if we had more funding available, we'd certainly be able to spend it.
You also have to find people who want to work on things that aren't square.
Yeah.
I mean, carpenters like things that are square.
Yes.
And there's a lot of thought that goes into working on stuff like this. So, I mean, not everybody wants to take on that.
It's so true. It's definitely a more specialized type of work. And one of the things we saw during the pandemic was that some of those really skilled craftspeople decided, who had been doing it for 30, 40 years, decided to retire. And so, we have this gap now. Not as many people doing that work, but there's still the need. So
We're also seeing that flooding is affecting agricultural buildings in a big way. So project costs are going up because of that, as well as material and construction costs. And then we do have a little bit extra in carryover. So even though we had $300,000 the last 2 years, we've awarded an additional 72, an additional 63. That's the projects that either didn't get over the hump to complete themselves, or Vermonters are very frugal and they'll finish the projects without spending all the money and get it back.
I know.
It's amazing how often that happens.
It happens a lot. So we're able to roll that money over. We use our oldest money first so that you don't come get it.
You know,
And we
we're not
don't
very
get it
good at that, but I know another committee that
Yes,
has a committee for that.
yes,
Yeah,
yes, they do. They've come knocking already. So
Yeah.
we like to make sure that we're putting out as much money as we can to really help people. This one has a 3-year time period.
Okay.
Because most of these are private property owners. They're farmers.
Are there any working farms in there? So there are working
The
farms.
vast
Okay.
majority of them are working
I
farmers.
don't want to just be disrespectful and dig right into it when you guys were talking, so, no.
The scoring criteria for the barn grant program that the council uses to evaluate the applications does include additional points that we get for working farms. So, there's a recognition we really want to support. So there's still an active agriculture, even though it's not a requirement. Certainly. It makes your application more competitive.
And we have two people on the ag committee here. Did they have trouble getting insurance, property insurance for any of these? Or has that changed since?
I've had calls from a few people, yeah, where their insurance company has told them, you know, oh, it's their barn is in disrepair and they need to either tear it down or. And, yeah, so.
I'm just wondering if that's
It
something that
happens
the state
occasionally.
might wanna try to help with, helping them. Yeah, I mean, insurance is challenging. But there might be things we can do.
Well, it needs structure on the last page that you have on that cedar sawmill and stove. It's just amazing.
Yeah.
Down a little bit more.
That's.
Right
that's
there, that is just
wow.
amazing right there.
Yeah, so that's one of these, that's gonna have a whole bunch of different, pots of money going into it. So we're really happy to be, in this case, an early funding source to help them do some stabilization work on the stone foundation of the lower level.
So as part of this $20,000 can be used in a lot of different ways. It can be used to leverage other money. It could be whatever is gonna make the project work, as far as whatever meets your guidelines when you go, so.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and so this is just some of the barn grant projects from last year. The newest crop, I have a less attractive list that I can pass.
They were awarded last.
They were
week.
awarded last
Oh, no
week.
kidding.
So-
Yeah, what I read.
I haven't,
Yes.
I haven't quite done the pretty pictures yet. But you know, this is a selection from last year, just to give you a slice of what we find. And we do a lot of roof projects, a lot of framing, timber framing repairs, foundation work, including drainage, high drives, such an important feature of our historic barns. This last year, we did the give grant to the Cary Sugar House, so that's a really neat project in St. Johnsbury. The old sugar house, of course, but really, you know, attached to the Cary Sugar operation. Yeah, so this year, more of the same, the East Monitor Barn in Richmond, if you drive on 89
Yeah.
here in Montpelier. They're obviously in the midst of a massive project, so our grant's gonna be going towards work to replace the slate roof this next year, which is very exciting. When we sent out the announcements, I got an email back from the director of UICC saying, this is great, I just found another roof leak, so this is really good that we're gonna be able to get to this in the coming building season. And then I just had some others from this year, drainage work, cupola at the Elijah Martin Homestead in Keachum. So we, a roof project, on a barn in Island Pond. So we really do get, funding out to all corners of the state, especially with the barn grant program. Because these structures are obviously in rural areas, so it's nice to see how the reach of the program really does touch, all these places that you don't necessarily drive by. Maybe the Monica barn being maybe an exception, but, nonetheless, really important, sort of emblems of the state.
And they all, even the historic preservation grants and the barn grants, they all create a very strong sense of place. And they really tie into the economics, whether it's the property owner themselves, the municipality using it, the people that they hire to do the work. And we really encourage that they have an ongoing maintenance plan. They get us for 5 years after their grant is completed. So, we're assisting and watching, giving advice, saying, no, when you have to. But I think it really helps them, and these are really two great programs. All of the grants in this section really are great for Vermont. So we appreciate all of your support and assistance.
Well, we appreciate what you do. I think you serve a very valuable part of Vermont. And again, I wish that we had an unlimited pot of money. I think we're probably safe to say that we're probably pretty safe with what you have this year. We should have more. And thank you for everything. This is neat stuff. This is the neat things that we get to do in state government. We get to see great results from a little bit of money that you get, tremendous results, and we appreciate you coming in very much. Committee, anything else for the?
No, it's just very low overhead. Too.
Yes, right.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just curious, the Baird Farm in Chittenden is
Yes,
of mine. Do you know what they did with that grant?
the one that we just awarded?
Yeah.
That project hasn't happened yet, because they just got
Oh,
the
okay.
grant. But they're planning to do some work on the back side of the barn. There's some foundation work and then some siding and windows. This is the second grant we've given to them, so they have got one back, 2 or 3 now. But that's a really fun story. It's a family farm that's been in the family
Oh, yeah.
for a long time. And it used to be a dairy farm, and they transitioned to meat, and now they're doing maple sugaring. And the youngest generation is taking over, and so the older generation is wanting to invest in the barn and sort of leave it in good shape for the generation that's coming up, so.
Nice.
That is one that you don't drive by chance. I mean, you
Yeah.
gotta wanna know way up in Chittenden to see it, but it's a great family.
Apparently they've got like in the spring, they do like a maple pie.
Yes, they do.
festival thing.
Yeah,
I'm
been to it.
like, I need to go.
Yeah, it's great.
I need to try that out.
Oh, nice.
Great.
Next, why don't we have Laura here
Thanks, Jim.
still, Caitlin Corkin?
No, that would be.
Oh, I'm sorry. So-
We tag teamed.
Okay, no, I'm sorry, I'm clicking the wrong one.
Eric might be up there.
Yep. Go for it.
Oh. And Ms. Everly.
Oh, do you guys want to tag team?
Yeah.
Alright.
We'll take it. Here, I'll go over there. All right.
You want me to show you the story?
You want the good chair? There you go. You sure?
Yes.
Okay.
I think that's the favorite. Linda, if you don't make it, that'd be great. What's that? If you don't mind doing it, that'd be great. Sure. Okay, but hang on one second.
Wow.
Long time no see.
Good afternoon.
Yes.
For the record, I am Eric Bilcorn in serving in my capacity as Principal Assistant Commissioner of Buildings and General Services today. The agenda reflects my provisional assignment with the Recovery Office, which is titled "It's Just Too Long to Say Out Loud." I remain a visitor on the federal
Okay.
side.
Yeah. Well, welcome. Good to see you again. Glad to have you back in this room.
Such a beat.
Yes.
Very warm welcome. And on my right,
I'm Kate Everly, Director of Communications and Legislative Affairs for Department of Buildings and General Services.
Well, what would you like to show us today?
Well, Kate, because she is, better than I am at most things, actually prepared a slide deck for you. But as you know, I tend to improvise, so maybe I'll lead with some improvisation and then we can go into Kate's deck.
Whatever you'd like to do it.
I wanted to, in case no one else says so out loud, and I know the committee's already familiar with this, but the genesis of the Building Communities grant program was, there used to be a section in the Capitol bill called the deli section.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a list of projects that were placed entirely based on the charisma of individual legislators and their ability to make deals. I don't know why they called it deli, but I believe he was still a representative and not a senator at the time. There was a guy named Philip B. Scott, who was one of the founding fathers of the section. And so, when you talk about giving more money to the program, I smile and I say, I support the governor's recommend, but of the list of other places you could park things other than BGS major maintenance, it would.
Hello?
Certainly.
Historic sites major maintenance.
As I said, I support the governor's recommend. So, and I believe it was about 4 years ago that the governor's recommend did almost double the appropriations. It was during COVID that we definitely poured it on. So BGS, and actually until recently, Judy Bruno.
Yep.
Managed the BGS side of it, and she was just camera shy, so I would come and do her portion of the show. But we have, 4 categories. There's human services, recreation, education, economic development. I just wanted to call out a couple of things about them that, make them interesting. The economic development one has to be sponsored by a municipality or a regional economic development committee, but it's one of the rare situations where state capital funds can go to a private business. It may be the only. I won't say it's the only. There's probably another one that I haven't uncovered, but the economic development fund. So-
Right, no, but wastewater sometimes can go to.
Wastewater, okay,
But I'm sorry,
right, for a private system.
yeah,
Okay.
but, or a pre-treatment, but, can you just back up a little bit?
Sure.
So you said 4 categories of what?
Of grant awards.
Yes.
That's.
Under BGS for.
Under the section 5.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, sorry.
So while there's historic preservation, barn grants, other.
Are those 2 of the?
Those aren't our categories.
Okay.
So ours are education,
Okay,
recreation, human services, and economic development.
okay.
And, there can sometimes be a little bit of, I know, like when the applications would come in, Judy would do a little bit of like, well, you're applying for education, but really this is more of a human services thing because, variations on a theme. It's really exciting stuff most of the time, like a new floor, a new roof, often, access paths for summer camps, replacing a deck, replacing a dock. It's basic stuff, and unlike for today, unlike the barn grants and historic preservation grants, we actually are mulch money and not seed money. It's last money in, so the project has to have proven itself within the community, shown support. And, it's the tail end and you need another $10,000-$20,000 to finish the project. This is the cavalry. Right, and that's the point at which you should be looking at that. And I'm not looking at your deck. If you want to say anything.
You're right.
Well, put it, tell us when you're ready.
Okay.
You ready for the deck?
Sure.
We have blue and green. Very nice colors. Oh,
Next slide, please.
no.
Linda, can you pop up the next one, please?
There we go.
Thank you.
Yay.
So this is just an overview of the 4 categories. As Eric said, it's last gap funding for shovel-ready projects. They can't be an active fundraising, and matching funds are required.
Wonderful.
Yes.
It's okay.
Yeah.
So, because since folks already have something planned, is it a pretty quick process to get through?
Yes. Yeah, I mean, I joke because I'm always joking that we'll take an application in crayon.
Yeah.
Wow,
They're
people can find grant.
Truth be told, if you're a 501c3, you need to prove it, and you need a bank statement, and you need some letters of support, but really the application itself is very basic.
Yeah.
And who's
it says
approving
the-
the applications again?
There's a different committee for each, actually, it's the same committee for education and humans.
Yeah.
Human services are done together, but there's a different committee for economic development, which, all of them have, it's kind of your standard committee where there's a legislator, there's someone appointed by the governor, there's someone from an affiliated agency. And actually, one of the nice things about that is, for instance, in the human services category, there is someone from AHS who has been there forever and knows everything. And she will say, oh, they're about to get this grant. They're really only gonna need this much, or you know what? We weren't able to help them, so this would be really important to finishing this project. And so there's good
Nice.
institutional knowledge.
That's nice.
It actually says in the application guidance that we encourage applications to be filled out by hand, but there really should be no barriers to entering.
So you probably have more than one cycle a year, or
Just-
you just do one, okay,
Yeah.
so they do have to plan ahead.
Yeah.
Yes, and
Um,
there's a newsletter that goes out, or not, sort of an email list to let people know when the grants are open. And we've been getting emails sort of steady drift throughout the year, saying, please add me to the list, as we good about it.
Are municipalities on the list?
I mean,
It might be good.
I believe so.
certainly some municipalities are.
Yeah.
Reasonable.
And the regional economic development leadership works with their municipalities too. So, and we do rely on legislators to help their constituents become aware of the opportunities.
So you send it to us.
That's the term belly.
Exactly. This is an opportunity for you to provide excellent constituent services. I won't name names, but some are quite persistent in a friendly and effective way.
And are you turning away more applications than you can honor?
Yeah, we get about twice as much in ask as we can give. And generally in committee, it's rare that any of the $25,000, our cap is 25, and if you come asking for 25, it's rare that you're gonna get 25. If you're asking for 2,500, it's almost guaranteed unless there's a fatal flaw in your project that you're gonna be taken care of. Some of the places where we run into tough judgment calls on what we want to support are if someone's like trying to purchase a vehicle or IT equipment, stuff that doesn't, we try to stay true to the idea of capital investments. And if it's a $500,000 or $1 million project, probably the monkey bars on the playground are gonna beat you in the head-to-head competition. But we try and help as many people as we possibly can right each time. That's been my experience across all of I've served on all of these committees over the years. Rotating cast, and that's kind of the spirit of it.
What's nice having you folks come in, all of you folks come in, is that somebody who's been raised in town government or at least served in town government, the stuff is there. You just don't know how to get it. You don't know how to find it. You don't know what to look for. So to have you come in and, talk about the process and, makes us more capable to go home and say, hey, now in our committee, we had this. Are you guys thinking of this? Are you thinking of that? Are you looking here? Are you looking there? And because, being on the town select board, there's always these projects are you just don't have quite enough, or you don't have any. And just be able to access these or just know where to turn to. Because again, a lot of the questions, sometimes we ask some questions just so that people who are interested in what we're talking about today can hear it and to learn what the process is. But from what I've always heard is that everybody's pretty darn helpful once they get an application in. So it's not one of those things where you forgot to cross a T and dot an I to where it's kicked back and you're put into purgatory.
No.
That's the neat thing about these types of grants.
Do you know who is going to be taking over administration of this? Are you on?
No, it's gonna be the new Judy.
Okay, so the new Judy will be sure to get the guidance that the spirit of the application is to help you finish your application. So Judy would spend a lot, you know, we get the big influx around July 30th, I think, I know the date has shifted a little bit. But she would immediately go through every application, and if something was wrong, she would call them up and say, hey, I need this other thing. Hey, you need one more of these. We want people to succeed. Yeah.
People walk in their applications very regularly too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can we hop to the next slide, please? So the cycle, applications become available in the summer once the funding has been appropriated. They're due September 10th and the committees meet in October, and then it just goes right up on the website as soon as the decisions are made. For 2024, we had 110 grant applications, of which 89 were awarded. And grants ranged in size from $1,300 to $25,000. There's, you can see that's a little bit more than 900,000, and that's from funds remaining from the previous year. And all 14 counties were represented, not in every category, but they were all, everyone got something.
That's a pretty good reward for 81%.
Sure. It's rare, maybe one every cycle will, you know, come back to us after 9 months and say, we thought we were gonna be able to do this and we can't. And another thing that happens quite frequently is, folks will come and be awarded a grant and they will circle back to us and say, hey, you know, we thought we were gonna be able to do the whole roof, but we're only gonna do one section of the roof. Can we still, you know, follow through? And that cycles through the committee. And I've never seen anyone say no. They just like the transparency that people are making a good faith effort.
So it's not a one and done as far as on a building. I mean, if funds are available, if they come in with another plan. It could be that they could get awarded more money if they were eligible.
Yeah, it gets to like, intelligent scoping of your application. If you're just doing a handicap bathroom and you also want to do the front steps, do you bundle those projects? And that equals a $15,000 ask, or, you know, and then sometimes in the awarding process, the committee will go through and say, well, they want the stove hood and the refrigerator and the, you know, the front steps. Let's give them enough for the steps. We can, or let's get them to, you know, we try to actually support components of a project. We don't have enough to support the entire project.
And applicants are encouraged to send in estimates for the work that they've already done, so they understand what the pieces, the building blocks are. Not just.
So all of them are 50-50 matches?
Mhm.
And is it appropriated after, like on a reimbursement basis? Okay. Thank you.
But by the time they get around to doing the work, we know we have the money in the bank and we can turn it around very.
Is there anything that's, any projects that are not eligible? I mean, if it's anything to do with the building or anything like that, I mean, heating, roofing, I mean, it's just weatherization.
We excluded asbestos, was that one?
Well, there was one project where they were looking to do some asbestos removal, but that, I think we didn't fund that one because the person from the asbestos abatement program was somehow affiliated with someone on the committee, and we thought we could get it taken care of that way. I think in that circumstance, it turned out that we wouldn't, and so we ended up funding. But, you know, I mean, if you think of allowable capital expenses,
Right.
so as long as the component has a real life, then we're making a judgment based on community benefit. Will it be transformative?
Several of the applicants have come back year after year with different phases of the project, so, you know, come in with the ramp and then add the steps and add the other thing.
This is why I say scoping your project appropriately is
Yeah.
a good, you know, just positioning thing, whether one giant project or small chunks. And like the others, you know, if you come back 2 years in a row, we won't turn you away, but you will be at the back of the line. If you got an award
That's
the previous year, or if by some fluke we are flushed and we help you, that's great. But you do see, like most of the regional economic development committee folks, are pretty reliable on putting forward, you know, 3 to 5 projects for their regions. And we see stuff like a municipality wanting to make all of their downtown wayfinding and business signage match and, like stuff that could really change your experience of being in a town. And it's fun to then go to a town and, pass by that bakery that bought their oven using a building community strand and keep them up and it's a good tour
Yeah.
year round. You look at the list and you're affecting communities all over the state.
Yeah, that's great. And if they have other state grants, is that okay? Like LoRac, I'm thinking about the recreation grants.
They don't count as
There's
matching
a
funds.
funds match.
But
Okay, but it doesn't hurt that.
Right, and volunteer time doesn't count as matching fund, it has to be
Okay.
actual money.
All right. And then economic development that's create or retain job opportunities. Sometimes there's other things that could be considered economic development, like job training. Right now, obviously, there's a shortage of workers in many situations. Would you ever do something
I suppose if there were.
like an elevator for a school or something?
I don't know, that would, if it was a school, it would probably come under education,
Yeah. I was
educational
thinking of-
facilities.
Or,
Yeah,
yeah, so that's a separate question is, do you do elevators?
do we do elevators? We do involve ourselves in elevators and,
And now there's more elevator companies in the state too.
Finally.
Yeah.
yeah. The job creation question is always a tough one too, because, it'll be for a business and they'll say, we're adding this to our assembly line and this will increase our production and this will create 2 jobs. But there was one last year where it was a company that was gonna expand the production line in one town. But if you look closely at their application, they were closing a facility in another town.
Mm.
And so there was really no net creation of jobs, and I believe we disqualified that.
Okay, so job creation is a critical component of that.
For the economic
For the economic
development,
development.
absolutely. Absolutely, okay, yeah. We also see, kind of cultural trends and other, during COVID, there were a lot of HVAC projects for arts facilities, theaters wanting to get better air circulation, stuff like that. The past couple of years, it has been the march of the pickleball courts. The rec grants are pickleball courts
Interesting.
everywhere,
Yeah.
or repairing the skate parks that we built 10 years
Oh.
before, that's the other one that comes around, but it's always kind of fun to see the trends in the
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
asks.
Snowmaking.
Snowmaking
Oh,
equipment.
snowmaking, well,
Yeah.
climate change, scary.
Mhm.
Linda, can we go to the next slide, please? So this is just the overview for each one, examining counties and the size of the grant. So it varies.
And no, I don't know why human services and education is smaller than the others, it's just always been proportionally like that.
I was looking at the list and it seems like there are a lot of like bathroom projects,
Mhm.
and like small.
Oh.
Projects, yeah, compared to recreation where they could be kind of massive.
For 80.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, a lot of ADA, a lot of just fixing up old buildings for adaptive reuse.
Do you have anything like this? Where you
Pictures?
have
Well-
pictures and names?
So we don't. It's an inspiration, thank you.
No, we
sir,
were
for that
not feeling bad about myself.
I
Oh,
know
it's
you
a high
can
bar
do this
over
if you
there.
want
Oh,
to.
I know.
you
Yeah.
can.
I thought
She-
from there.
I'm pointing to Kate, because she's actually very good at making things and making things beautiful. I didn't know we had a slide deck until 30 minutes before we got here. So, of
I mean,
course,
that's very
it's-
helpful too.
It's Kate.
Yeah.
I'll work on the photos for next time around.
Yeah, or just the names. you know.
Yes, so actually, all of the grants are published on the website, it's a spreadsheet,
Oh,
so you can
good.
see like who applied, who was funded, and what form.
And that's on,
It's on the BTS website under the commissioner's office, it's a little bit of a plan to find it,
Yeah.
but it's
If
there.
you just, the dirty little secret about state websites that no one seems to get is that the search function actually works. So if you go to the homepage of something and type building communities grants, I think even if you go to Vermont.gov. But if you go to the BGS page, and actually I think it might even be a button on the homepage for applications and the like, it's there. And there is a summary of all of the grant categories and requirements and the application and past awards going
great.
back years, so.
We're working on our website. Please do not judge.
Oh,
We are too.
Her predecessor was a real hack, so. Kate is.
We heard that.
Yeah.
Okay, next slide, please, Linda. Okay, so we, just a few case studies to give you a sense of what is out there. So the Brattleboro one was personal favorite for both Eric and me, I think.
That's right.
So,
That's a neat thing.
yeah, a community that has 100 children and no play area playing out in the street and the parking lot. So now they have a play, they're getting a playground. So
And that's wonderful. I know about that.
yes,
Thank you.
we're happy about that one. And then, so Family Health and Hospital wastewater pumping station. If it goes out, it's gonna be a huge problem for them. So again, it's nice to be able to set it.
You need one, you need one.
Yeah. And then this library, it's multi-use community space, so being able to build that out. And then this cafe and bakery, they did a like a revitalization study on the village, and they found that they really need some kind of, what do they call it, food space, gathering place to stimulate the community. So helping them bring in people they need to get the cafe up and running.
No, that's great. I mean, everyone needs gathering spaces.
Good.
That's one. Good.
Then Eric's Bakery.
Yeah, I don't know. The other one, there's a place in Pittsburgh called Cluckin'
Chicken.
Chicken.
Yeah.
They're now they have like a food truck and they're the main
Yeah.
person that feeds you at the World Cup. If you ever go to the big ski race, it's
Yeah.
it's in there.
No kidding.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
But I think they were at one point trying to serve breakfast and they just didn't have the right setup for it, or they needed a little bit of extra help, and now it's how big Pittsburgh.
That's great.
It's really nice when you're looking at the applications, just seeing how much the community has already done to get to this point, like so many organizations and individuals pulling together, and it's like, they just need that little bit, and
Right.
great.
Right, yeah, and as an applicant, to have pictures of cute kids. Even if your project has nothing to do with cute kids, just put pictures of cute kids in your puppies.
And
Right,
dogs.
puppies,
Yeah.
puppies, so we do get asks for dog park fencing and then like something more than just the, town administrator at midnight, I want more letter of support, there's a little life to your letter of support, a little diversity of, community, just showing that community really wants it.
From the director.
Great.
Well, nice. Thank you again. I mean, you're looking at all the applicants and you start counting out how many people were helped and, we appreciate that many people work. It's just nice. It's just nice to know that your government can give back a little bit. And thank you.
The last thing is just Judy.
Yeah.
Bruno has gone over to work for ACCD, so she's still doing grant.
Oh,
So,
God.
yeah.
I was wondering if she was retiring and I thought she was probably a grade in front of me. And I was gonna be a little jealous if she was. I need that gig.
This was her favorite part of the job, and now she gets to do grants full time, so.
Well, I know her family very, very well.
Is
Very
that
well.
because you had a repeated grade or?
You're well, Hey, fourth grade was the hardest grade I had, like 4 times.
It's nice to see you take it over from Asa.
I don't think that's possible.
Yeah. He'll be across the hall tomorrow.
Oh, boy, okay.
I got Bob Norris coming in.
Are you kind of 2-pack as well?
I'm 2 and then it's on screen, so we're all
Oh,
still in
that's
the
right.
chair, yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
Hey, how are you?
Good.
There was a small.
Michelle is there. Great.
Yeah.
Well, hello, everyone. I'm Stephen McClure. I'm the Executive Director of Vermont Arts Council, new in this role as of last May, so my first time going through this process, but I have to say how exciting it is to talk about all of your grants, because I've worked at many nonprofits that have applied for and received all of the grants we're talking about
Oh, no
today in
kidding.
some iteration over the years.
Yeah.
Building communities grants, especially with it was the last one that put us over the edge to be able to complete a major capital project of Adopt. So we were Adopt. Thank you very much.
Nice.
I coached that doctor.
Well, you're welcome to. It's not officially public because it's permanent, but anyway, that's a different story. I'm here with Michelle Bailey today. So I'm here to talk a little. Hey, Michelle. Michelle is actually just doing a grant seeker workshop to spread the word about all of her grant opportunities, which is why she couldn't be here in person.
But I'm gonna start by talking just a little about the Arts Council and about the Cultural Facilities Grant, and then Michelle will jump in with the images and the pictures and some great stories of the grants that we have given out this year. I thought Linda had some materials that have all of the grants listed that we've done, but she's giving me a look that maybe she didn't receive it. So I'll follow up with you if you didn't get it to post it. But- Okay, great.
Yeah.
So thank you all for your support of the arts and culture and our communities in Vermont and the Cultural Facilities Grant Program. Not only, of course, do the arts connect us to each other and our humanity and help us understand the world, but they also are a driving force of Vermont's economic growth and our community well-being. And the Arts Council has been the state's primary provider of arts funding, advocacy, and information since 1965. And our work is really based on the idea that the arts transform individual lives, that they connect people more deeply to each other, and they energize the economy and are part of sustaining this vibrant cultural landscape that you've heard so much about today, which makes our state the special place that it is. We're also the state affiliate for the National Endowment for the Arts, so our funding comes primarily from the National Endowment for the Arts and the state of Vermont. We work in three main areas: direct grants to arts organizations, individual artists, and municipalities. We also do training and capacity building for artists and arts organizations to help them do their best work. And we work to build a creative economy through our Vermont Creative Network, which is a broad coalition of the whole sector working to advance creativity across the state. So last year, we awarded just over 340 grants to 85 individuals and 201 organizations in 100 towns in every county of the state. Those grants include the Cultural Facilities Grant Program, but go far beyond that, funding capacity building, public art, accessibility, arts education, and so much more. And we're always applying an equity lens to our grant program to really focus on delivering those funds, state funds and federal funds, effectively to the people who are most in need or typically underserved by state resources. So like Michelle did today, we do a lot of outreach around the state to make sure people know about the opportunities and are applying for them. What we're really working to do is create the conditions in Vermont so that artists and arts organizations can meet the needs of our communities and really do their best work. So I'll just mention a little bit about the economic power of the arts as well. Oh, I should have also said thank you for the visitor that was in the committee room today. I did not abandon him in the hallway, in case anyone was wondering.
It was actually.
No, he was with a very wonderful coworker as he was in a different room.
Yeah.
Kind of wanted a more, anyway, he was in a different room. So thank you for that too. Community, it's all about
Be
community.
picky about art, maybe. We like our art, it's modern.
I was actually looking at it.
We actually switched that out this
Yeah.
year. We asked our curator, David Sheets, to come up with something that kind of gave us some ideas and you know, I'm not kind of I like art as well, and I like art that you have to kind of look at it to try to figure out what it is. And he actually is gonna bring some placards in there, and basically this one and this one right here are the same, but it's in 1857 when the State House broke. And so you can see the State House up here. You have the fire, well, the horse-drawn fire carriage down there, and the same over there, just a different. And our artist in the room, Senator Harrison, she seems to believe that's two different mediums as far as what they are.
I mean,
And
what it's done in.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
that's different pastel and
yeah,
oils.
so we just wanted something a little bit different. The other was beautiful, but it was just getting kind of familiar. So we're very happy that Mr. Sheets took care of us and brought in something bright and pretty traumatic, I guess, but at the end of the day, it makes you ask questions, and it's hey, if you can burn it down and BGS can build it back, I think it kind of serves what this committee does, so what it is, so.
And we care about fire safety, right? We care about fire safety. Yeah.
Respectfully declined.
It makes me want to change the subject. Wind turbines in the northeast.
Well, the next thing I was gonna say was actually about the power of the arts to bring us together in times of crisis.
There we go.
No,
There you go.
There we go.
I'll also mention that the arts in Vermont are the third largest economic sector behind retail and construction. It's over $1 billion a year of Vermont's GDP comes from the arts and culture sector. And when audiences attend live performances and live cultural events, they are spending money directly in our local economies. This year, we actually released the results of a new national survey called the Arts and Economic Prosperity Sixth. It's the sixth survey in 30 years. And we learned that on average, attendees to Vermont live cultural events, 75% of those attendees are local and 25% are non-local, which means they come from outside of the county area. And of those non-local audiences, 80% of them travel specifically to attend a live cultural performance or event. So I think we've all seen this, like I've done this, hopefully you've maybe done this too around the state, but this is some really great data to say, yeah, people do make decisions about their spending based on cultural events. And then we also found out through that survey that local visitors are spending $29 per person on top of their ticket price every time they attend a live arts performance or event. And non-local visitors are spending on average $52 per person on top of the cost of the ticket of their event. In Burlington, that non-local event is like over $70 per person. So it's some really great data that kind of proves what we've already seen and participated in, but it's really nice to have some hard numbers around that.
Well, I was glad to see that there's been a little bit of a rebound, because being one that was here during the pandemic, we were really nervous about whether the arts was ever gonna really make that transformation back. And, I'm sure that there's always greater numbers that you could always wish for, but it sounds like it sounds like people are responding, and, it sounds like you're on a good path.
Yeah, and a lot of that is due to the work of the legislature and through the COVID emergency relief funding that you provided in the Creative Futures grants. So that was $9 million of ARPA money directly to the sector. And that's a great example, like all of the stories we're telling today, of government funding, investing where it is most needed and making a huge difference. So those Creative Futures grants really made one organization was telling me that they were quite literally one electric bill away from shutting down, and they got their check from the Arts Council through COVID funding, and they paid their electric bill, and that was all they needed. It was a little bridge, and now they're still open, in Bellas actually. And the other thing that all these organizations need, that the cultural facilities, our grants have very similar names. The Cultural Facilities Grant Program does is really invest in the physical infrastructure of cultural facilities. What these grants do is help Vermont nonprofits, organizations, and municipalities enhance, create, or expand the capacity of an existing building to provide cultural activities for the public. So applicants must own the facility, it has to be over 10 years old, and it must be in Vermont. And cultural activities are really broadly defined. Any activity that really enhances artistic creativity, aesthetics, history, scholarly appreciation, could be performances, exhibits, films, displays, workshops, really a broad definition of what cultural and artistic activity means. These grants they can be from $1,000 to $30,000. They also require a one-to-one match, and it's really critical funding. Having applied for these grants in many nonprofits over the years, these cultural facilities grants are really some of the very few funds in Vermont, public or private, that fund capital projects at cultural organizations and municipalities. There's also a big emphasis on accessibility projects. You asked about elevators earlier. We were joking that we could do a map of Arts Council funded elevators across the state.
That would be so their site. You should put that on your website.
Because we have funded a lot of elevators and accessibility projects, entrances, changing kind of the layout of a building. We also do stage improvements, permanent cases, environmental controls, and hazard mitigation, flood gates, sun pumps, rain gutters. We've been investing in all of that, and energy efficiency, including insulation and heat pumps, renewable energy systems, switching to LED lighting. And since 2001, Vermont has invested over $4 million to support these theaters, arts organizations, museums, town halls, municipalities across the state. And the other great thing about this program is that not only does it allow these facilities to exist and flourish and be part of their community, it's also facilitating the employment of Vermont businesses. So we've now been tracking since 2014 how much money from this grant program is being spent in a Vermont-based business, because of their capital projects. So it's a lot of contractors, and it's around 75% of the money goes directly to Vermont-based businesses, and the 25% of the funding that's spent out of state is often in really specialized areas that we do not have anyone in Vermont that does this kind of work, whether it's a very specific climate control system for a museum or an audio system that can be a really specific thing. that does happen, but the majority of the money is staying in the state and building that economic ecosystem that we all rely on, and of which the arts and culture are really a critical part. I'll just share a really pretty incredible example, and not isolated, but incredible example from this year. Right after the summer flooding, the Arts Council was trying to get a sense of what arts organizations had damaged, what we should do, where we should fit. And we received an email from someone at the Capital City Grange Hall over in Berlin. And she said, I'm gonna say it as she said it because it was so good. She said, it was a board member named Nancy Turner who said, I just wanted to share the good news from the Capital City Grange Hall that we didn't have any flood damage. And we can thank the cultural facilities grants for that outcome. We used to experience water coming into the basement during big storm events. Thankfully, due to the sump pump and drainage that we installed, this no longer happens. Amid all the challenging news, I thought you might want to know this little success story.
That's great.
And this is, I think, a really important example of these small government investments having huge payoffs. They got a $26,000 grant. They maximized that money. They did a lot of work with it, and they prevented who knows how many more multiples, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of damage. I mean, we all saw the numbers of damage and how quickly that goes up. And so this year we're really focusing, there's still a broad range of projects that will fund, but we've put extra attention on grant funds to encourage organizations and municipalities to use these really critical capital funds to make improvements and increases to energy efficiency, flood issues, extreme weather event preparedness, really any physical thing your building needs, which I'm sure you've heard about a lot so far this year because it's become a real important thing.
So say it again, you're dollar for dollar, if you have a dollar, you have to have a dollar, you get a dollar.
Yes, exactly.
Okay,
Mhm.
great.
And we are similarly at $300,000. We were at $300,000 last year. We're recommending another $300,000 this year. And as with all of my fellow panelists today, we have overwhelmingly more requests than that, but we're really grateful for the support from the state because, like I said, it's one of the few opportunities that these organizations, these really important community organizations get to fund their capital projects. So Michelle is gonna, I think I'll turn it over to Michelle. She can't, I don't know if she can, oh yeah, she can see me looking at her. To share a little bit more. Michelle runs this grant program as well as many others at the Arts Council and does an incredible job of connecting and being a resource for these organizations as well to help them through the process. There's a lot of really vital, handholding sounds bad, but I think handholding in a nice way, right? Like there's a lot of support through all of these projects, it sounds like too.
Any of those, like I said earlier, anytime that you can apply for something like this and have somebody willing to hold your hand and walk you through it. I'll put you to the back of the line because you've made a mistake, or, some little mistake or excluded something, because, we've all done it. We are all like, I can't believe I didn't send that, and that's just the way it is. So to be able to have, somebody that's there caring is very nice.
Yeah, and that is Michelle. So I'll turn it over to you, Michelle.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, great. I'm Michelle Bailey. I'm the Senior Program Manager and Accessibility Coordinator for the Vermont Arts Council. And as Susan said, this Cultural Facilities Grant Program is one of the programs that I administer for the Arts Council. And Susan gave you a good recap of our program and the process, and I just thought I would share with you just a teeny sampling of some of the funds projects that we funded this year in FY24, I guess last year or this year, just to give you a little sampling of the variety. So I'm going to attempt to share my screen here. Can you see this
You can see it.
cover page here now?
Yep.
Yes, okay. So, yes, I just wanted to share, we give out quite a few grants. I'd say on average anywhere from, 15 to 25 or so a year. And we usually get far more than that. And I just wanted to share a little sampling, as I said. So in FY24, this is the grant we gave to the New England Youth Theater. These projects haven't been completed yet because we just gave them out, but this one is to do their redecking of their floor of the main stage of the theater and in the audience area. Floors, just like anything else, get worn, and and there's trip hazards, and I think they want to do some slightly different designing of it. There's a slate platform area where the students perform, and so it will just, as they said in their application, provide a safer stage area and access to the seating area to mitigate those trip hazards for people. And that one was a $13,000 grant, so kind of mid-range. Our grants are, as Susan said, 1 to 30,000. Up in the town of Franklin, we gave a $27,000 grant to the Haston Library to assist with lift installation and upgrade of their current heating system, really helping with accessibility, as they said in their application here. Sometimes people aren't able to participate in these cultural events and activities that are happening in libraries, because as we know, libraries are huge community resources, and they do so much for our communities that cultural activities is usually a big part of that. And so this will help to bring back the access to the upper levels. Also, in our larger scale communities, Paramount Theater down in Rutland, we gave them a $30,000 grant to help with a brand new main curtain and to redo some of the rigging systems and counterweight systems to lift that, which will increase their space amount. They just barely finished this grant, and this is a picture of their brand new theater curtain, plus as they had said that they invested in a new counterweight system and improved the ceiling height based on that rigging system, so that they can now bring in a larger variety of shows. And they would have technicians who would have to go up and do all the lighting by hand and different things to make these productions that come into the theater to happen. And now they have a lot more flexibility and a much more efficient way of doing it, and can handle the weight of some of these shows that come in. So, we do give out those larger grants. And then we also, in these very rural communities up in Greensboro, even a tiny little grant of $1,600 to support the installation of some light protecting window shades. This is in their exhibit space and will help, with the light and environmental protection. As we know, sunlight and UV light can damage your archival materials and your collections. So just having some simple curtains are also ways that people can apply for these funds. So, it's, like I said, it's a broad range of applications that we get, and I'd say probably even 70% of the applications that we get are from really tiny rural communities trying to save these amazing cultural assets and community buildings. So I'll stop there and let you ask any questions that you might have.
So the matches that you get 1-to-1, can you stack it with other grants?
Yes.
Yes,
So
yes.
yes. It just can't be state funding.
Okay,
So it can't be all other state funding.
okay, yeah.
And there's some really great examples of projects that have used this as a piece of a larger project.
Yeah.
We funded the Virgins Opera House project, also an elevator for them. And so they're gonna have one of the only accessible stages and green rooms. So I'm getting that right, Michelle, right? Correct me if I'm
Yeah.
wrong.
There are a few around the state, but very few stages are accessible for artists in theaters. People usually try to get the audience area accessible, but the stages, especially in these old historic buildings, are often not accessible. So that's what the Virgins Opera House project was about, making that stage accessible. So.
And they received a lot of different funds, private funding, federal funding, COVID relief funding, that they kind of pieced it all together, and we were one of those pieces.
And those opera houses are great, just
Right.
because they're mixed, yeah, well,
Like a little bit of everything.
because they're municipal too.
Yeah.
And they're a municipal building.
And other states don't have that. That's something really, I mean, maybe some do, but I don't know any others that do.
And maybe I shouldn't tell you this story, but I did actually fall down those stairs once.
In Virginia?
At the Virgin Opera House, performing on the stage down to the green room. I was fine.
Oh my gosh.
But there is a risk there that we are helping to abate. So.
Yeah, that's funny. So do you, on the energy side, if Efficiency Vermont is doing a lot more now, just the last year than they've done before. Do you work with them?
Yeah, Michelle, wait, do you wanna just tell, this is not exactly cultural facilities, but we're running another training program about preparing for climate change right now, and a lot of the organizations that have received cultural facilities grants, some are participating in this training. So Michelle, do you wanna talk about that briefly and how Efficiency Vermont is linked with that?
Yeah, sure. So we started a couple of weeks ago, a 4-session series called Culture for Climate Action in Vermont. And it's really focusing a lot on energy efficiency and building facilities and buildings and doing assessments. And last week we had the folks from Efficiency Vermont come in and do a presentation to the group and talk about the resources that they offer. This week, Preservation Trust will be coming in to talk about, how to get some funding to do energy audits and other general building assessments. And all of this stuff is interconnected. So we've got 2 more weeks. It's every other week, so we'll be done around mid-March. This 4-session series. This is a real pilot for us and the Arts Extension Service down in Massachusetts, who's been working with us on this topic. So, but we're bringing in a lot of Vermont resources and folks, so.
And there's 25 different organizations participating in that right now, and then we're gonna have those resources available on our website. A lot of what we do, and actually Caitlin is you're the queen of this, but I feel like a lot of what all of our organizations do is act as the middleman, the translator. Translator is a nicer thing, I think, than middleman, but of finding out what those resources are and making sure people know about them.
Right.
There are a lot of resources out there, federal funding, state funding, never enough, but there's a lot. But if you're a small arts organization trying to make payroll every 2 weeks, you just don't have the bandwidth or capacity. You don't think that something for Efficiency Vermont is for a small theater. So a lot of what we do is outreach and translation, and Caitlin does a ton of that too. And I feel like the first time we went around the state together, I was like, I learned so much from Caitlin about what's out there too. And being able to coordinate with all of our resources and then being out together. Caitlin's actually gonna, I don't know if you know that yet.
Yes,
Go
I
on
do.
tour with Michelle and Amy Cunningham on our team to the areas where actually we got the least number of grant applications. So we actually just looked at all of our grants, grant making for the past 6 years and figured out what geographic regions get the most and the least funding and how many applications we're getting. And we found the areas that have the least number of applications, we're gonna go out over the next couple months and do a little roadshow and tell people what's going on. And
That's great.
That makes them aware.
Yeah, exactly.
No, and then we can.
Okay, that's great, yeah. One of them's in Essex County, so we'll reach out to you.
Nice, please do.
And you know buildings.
Yes, I do. All neat? Committee, anything else?
Very good presentation.
Very nice. Thank you all for what you do for Vermont and very, very important part. It always makes us feel good to have you folks in, and again, wish we could double your budgets. It's not gonna happen, but we can always try for another year. So
We'll be here.
Yeah.
but we do appreciate what you do. We do appreciate what you do with the money, how you just distribute it out and how you make the process easy. And because a lot of these communities just don't have staff to do any of that, so we really do appreciate that very, very much. Thanks.
Great.
Well, sounds good.
Thanks.
Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.
Yep.
See you
Bye,
tomorrow.
Michelle.